Hello, I come to you in my pajamas and dress robe and wet hair. It is 5:30 p.m. and it is winter here and it is raining outside, and I have to post a video because it is my 1 year anniversary of posting videos on this channel. I've just reread the final chapter of Disorderly Nights and I finished 2 months ago. Whew, do you forget stuff so quickly? I've already forgotten so much from the Disorderly Nights at reading this last chapter. I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, they all died. So many people die. This is basically the part where Lyman gets all of his allies, all of the books to have ended like this so far. It's just like Lyman getting his allies to finally be like, see, I was right. And I think the really satisfying thing about this is Jarrett. I have so much to say about Jarrett in general, but I'm not going to really go into it. But really, like, what we've seen is like Jarrett has finally, I think at the end of this book, Jarrett is finally realizing that there is only one person that you can truly trust, and that would be for him, God. And that anyone that you think is a god who is actually mortal that's probably a red flag. And so I think that when Jarrett is starting to take steps away from Gabriel and taking steps toward Francis, this time it's not going to be in a hero worship way, but in a way where Jarrett knows that Lyman is a fallible human being, and yet I will follow him anyway. And I think that Lyman would never want Jarrett to follow him for any other reason than just old-fashioned, down-to-earth respect with the knowledge that a person is human. Like, I don't think Lyman wants anyone to follow him out of like god worship, except for like a few people in the French court. He totally loved that there. But that's what I want to say about Jarrett. I'm keen to go and reread a lot of stuff of Jarrett's. It's been a while now since I read it. So the main things that are crazy in this final showdown is how quickly the switch is from Gabriel being like, oh, you're such a child, Lyman, let me deal with you, to like suddenly turning around and being the most petty, vindictive child towards Lyman. It's like such a switch. A part of me didn't feel completely realistic, even though it was satisfying to a point. But like, yeah, I'll get to a bit in a minute. But there was one bit here on page 493 where they've just started fighting, Gabriel and Lyman, in like this duel in this church, right? And Lyman has somehow ripped Gabriel's shirt, and it says here, then Jarrett and all those near saw what the torn shirt revealed, pricked, white-scarred, and with the passage of time on his breast. Lyman saw it too, and his sickened understanding must have shown, for Gabriel's amusement lit all his face. This is gross because I had to stop and think about what they're seeing, and I'm assuming they're seeing like scratch marks from his sister. Gilletta. Oh my gosh, I had to think about her name. Gilletta being dead is a satisfying relief to me, even though she did not deserve to have Gabriel as a brother. It could have been different, you know. But if my theory is correct, that Gabriel is actually Gilletta's father, then that kind of also makes sense as to why Gabriel is like got a thing for Lyman now having a blonde kid. It's really, really creepy. So yeah, I'm assuming that is a scar from like where Gilletta has hurt Gabriel. But I don't know, what did you like? My first thought was like, it's not a brand, he hasn't been branded, this is something to do with Gilletta doing something really creepy and incestual to Gabriel, and he's allowed it. I don't know, I wonder what you guys interpreted that line as. It was just weird. I will say the where Lyman manages to throttle with a cord around Gabriel's throat, that was satisfying, and I was just waiting for that death, but I didn't think Lyman would actually kill him in a church. It was really, really satisfying to hear Lyman, I take you all to witness that if I must suffer for it, the crime is no one's but mine. The venue I cannot help, except that under this roof, Gabriel, your corpse is more seemly than your body. such a great insult. I'm remembering that. Not that I think there's anyone in my life that I could really use that for, except in sarcasm, but that is such a good insult, just off the top of his head. And the thing is that Gabriel isn't even going to care for it, because at this point we know that he's such a big narcissist that Gabriel doesn't believe he's done anything wrong, you know? This is like the level of evil that you get from a devil, essentially. You know, devils don't believe they do things wrong. Like, there's levels of badness when you believe you've done something wrong, but you're so like into preserving your own self-image that you actually can push away so much evil stuff because your own pride trumps everything. That's where Gabriel's at. It was satisfying to have, you know, for Will Scott, for Thomas Wishart, for Trotty Luckup, for Watt Scott, and then everyone else speaking out for what you did in Malta, in Tripoli, to the peoples of the borders who will hardly knit now for generations. Now, I think I said, so Lymond has a son, and we obviously, us as readers, knew the whole time that there was a son that was alive, but Lymond and Sibylla and co also found out about it, but Lymond is finding out about it now. It's just an interesting like sequence of events after this, because Lymond is like, speak, I want to know. Graham says the truth. Nicholas de Nicolay then says that is true, you do have a son. So Lymond's like, oh my gosh, it is true, because obviously they trust each other. Graham says, you know, he's been branded at 5 months old with Dragout's mark, and says the most, and then basically makes a bluff, basically says that if I die, the boy will die as well. Now, I don't think that's true. I think Dragout is actually betrayed Gabriel and isn't going to, isn't going to be on Gabriel's side. But Lymond doesn't know that. Like, for all it's, the assumption is that if Gabriel dies, the son dies, or doesn't get it, or maybe it's because Gabriel's sending money over to the son. That's the only reason that he's alive. Otherwise, Dragout's going to kill him, which I also don't think is true, because I think Dragout is a lot smarter than Gabriel. But the sequence of events is crazy, because Lymond actually decides, no, I'd rather that Graham dies. There's been too much loss already. He says, no, again, no, this time you have guessed wrongly. I am ready to give you anything, even what is not mine to give, to see you dead. Because Lymond knows that his son's life is not his own to give. I think Una O'Dwyer would have the courage to agree. I agree with that. For the child, if there is a child, if it is mine, I must answer elsewhere. And it's Philippa that stops him. It's Philippa that says no, which seems kind of unbelievable. Like, she's just a child. But this whole series is setting up Lymond and Philippa as an item. It kind of feels, I can feel that coming in so many ways. Especially now that we know in this sequence of events where Philippa basically says, you know, what harm can Sir Graham do now? What might the little boy become? What is this but useless vengeance? There is a baby, you cannot abandon your son. So I also think that Lymond is going to see so much goodness in Philippa Somerville right now, because Philippa is the one that reminded Lymond that this was just vengeance. That even though Philippa, maybe there's a small part of Philippa that's just like, great, so he has been with other women, because we know that Philippa totally has a crush on Lymond. So Philippa, like, is probably like, oh, so this person that I really like also has these bastard kids, and she goes and defends them. That says a lot about her good nature, and I think Lymond's gonna remember that. Gabriel turning around and speaking to Philippa and being like, wouldn't it, my treasure, is so cringe. And I love it how Jarrett was the one cringing, because Jarrett's like, what in God's name? Said Jarrett under his breath. Jarrett is like, this is disgusting. And then, not to mention, Gabriel's words here, I'm sorry, but these are the most disgusting words that have been said in this entire series so far. You won't find him, Gabriel says, because he is going to have a new master. Gross. He will know the whipping post, sweetheart, as you never knew it. Gross. He will learn to carry my filth, and when it pleases me, to sleep in my bed. disgusting. It will teach you to remember Graham Mallet. What the hell is Graham saying? He's like bought the boy to be his personal slave and is now going to go back and retrieve the slave. Graham is the only one who knows where this boy is, supposedly. I think that Dragut has moved him. And now that Graham has left on the ship, Lyman is going to have to track him down to then go find his son. So I'm assuming that is a big part of the next book. Unless we get another like 4-year time skip and it's actually already been done. That's possible. But like, that was like easily the most disgusting thing. The last line of this, where like Richard is there and Richard the whole time knows that like Gabriel would have underestimated Lyman during the fight. I loved that. And Jarrett was there at the end. I don't really understand what happened at the end with Lyman like being like, okay, we're just going to take everyone to France now because the Queen, Dowager Queen, doesn't want this big St. Mary's army. And like, I've forgotten about, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm assuming they're going to go to France. That's that. Do we care about plot in this book? Yes, we care about plot. But do we care about characters? Yes, we care about the characters. Because I just think it was so cute. I mean, I care about plot in this. I really do. The plot is great. It's just, it's the characters that I want to talk about, not so much the plot. The plot seems incidental sometimes. Sibylla, like Lyman being like, knowing that he wants to go to the chapel to make a promise to himself to save his son, no matter what. I will not fail you ever. That last line, oh my gosh, live, wait for me, new frightened soul. Though the wolves are appointed our godfathers, I will not fail you ever. I remember like crying so much when I read that. That and What Scott dying and then the end of Game of Kings have been the most emotional moments, I think, for me. But I still find it kind of crazy that Francis was like, no, I'll kill Gabriel in spite, screw my son. Philippa stops him. He comes back to himself and realizes, no, that this is the most important thing. What could be more important than... Vengeance certainly isn't more important than family. Even though he's never met his son, even though he doesn't even know if his son could be alive, the chance of family, the chance of blood and love and being a father, like it threw Lyman back on himself and he went and made this promise. It's cute how Richard was like, don't worry, Sibyl's there waiting to take you into her arms afterwards. Because Sibylla would have known the whole time that as soon as Lyman found out that it would just like, it would completely screw with his mind. I think at the beginning, like my final like predictions for like going forward is that I think a long time ago I said I don't want Lyman to ever like have kids in this series because I think it would change the tone and I don't know if I'd like the direction that goes in. He has a kid. It doesn't bother me at all. It actually adds a really interesting and human dimension. And I think I'm just scarred by a lot of stories. As soon as there's a child involved, it gets like overly annoying and dramatic. And I don't think it's actually going to fundamentally change Lyman. There is one line. You guys must remember this line. It is just a killer. This is through Sibylla's POV, really. The first and only son of his blood, instead of blossoming in that careful, careless affection which he had given already so endearingly to Kevin, had been bought like an animal and branded like an animal, and was now being bartered like some dirty, unconsidered coin for Gabriel's life. That was a beautiful line. Like, Sibylla knows how affectionate Lyman is towards family, and even though technically the little boy, Kevin, has stolen Lyman's title from him, I don't think Lyman ever cared about that. That wasn't a thing for him. Lyman likes being rich and stuff, but I think like the family thing is just way above. That's why he was so affected by Eloise's death. That's why he was so affected by the fact that his father clearly seemed to not like him. And he protected Richard even when Richard was trying to kill him. And he obviously is the biggest mummy's boy in the entire world, and Sibylla loves that. But so for him to discover that he has a baby is not actually going to change who Lymond is fundamentally. It's just going to be a plot thing. So I'm interested to see what happens. I hope that it's not too much of a big thing. But we shall see. What is life if it isn't about friends and family, you know? Anyway, I will see you next time for Porn and Frankincense.